So Oz and I were at the Model Off Global Training Camp in Toronto about 10 days ago, and Oz had a question for me. How can we create a list of all possible name pairs? And we'll need to possibly add or remove names. So here we have a bunch of names. It could be full name or just the first name, as long as they're unique. We want to get all the pairs of two in this list. We could add more names to the bottom, or we could take away names, just decrease it like this as it's a table, but we want to see all of those combinations. So let's take a quick look. Once again, here are the 10 names, and we want something like this, where we're seeing all the pairs of names. Doesn't matter, the order doesn't matter. So Elena, Dorothy is the same as Dorothy, Elena. We only need them there one time. So here we have a formula counting the names in here, and this formula is getting all the possible pairs of two names that for 10 different names here. So let's type in and just see how those formulas are going to update. So now we get, for 11 names, there's 55 pairs. So we need to, the solution would have to update. Now, if we take the name away and just move the table, shrink it to go back to 10, this should update. So let's just take that away. So we have back to 10 and 45. All right. Now, what also helps to think about a solution, I'm just going to unhide something here. And when we see these, because the order doesn't matter, for the first person, Elena, who's at the top of the list, there's all these different pairs, 9 different pairs going from Elena with all of these names. And as we keep going to the right, it gets smaller and smaller because a lot of the pairs are already existing to the left. So over here, let's go way over here. A lot of these pairs are already existing to the left, so we don't need as many as we go all the way over here. And over on the extreme right, we've got Norm, Iris, Norm, Mel, because Norm is already here and here and here with all these other people paired up. All right, so there's different ways to solve this, and the way I solved it was by pretty cool. Take the Cartesian product idea and use get in transform. Then that's it. Record the steps to process the table. It exports the answer back into Excel, and then if you change your name list, if you go back in here and change this list, just rerun those steps and get and transform, otherwise known as Power Query, you could just refresh those steps and you'd see your solution. But I'm obviously not going to do the same thing, so I thought, well, what else can I do? And there is one interesting way. This wasn't my first idea, but I think it's probably the easiest. There's a couple of manual steps, but let's just look at how simple this is. Here, I'm just using the rand between with index just to randomly pull out names. I do it here. I do the same thing in this column, and sometimes we get repeats. When there's a repeat, we get a blank. This formula looks for that and gives us a blank. So here it puts them all together. So all we really have to do, just highlight all of this, copy it, go over here, right click, and paste in the values. Now, we'll have to do one little cleanup, a couple things, but go right to there, data, remove duplicates, uncheck the first two columns, name 1 and 2. Now we have name 1, 2. Make sure we check this. My data has headers. Click the OK button. Now we've got 46. We see that we should have 45. So the one with where it's the same and we have a blank, that one we have to manually highlight and delete it. And now we have all 45 of those name combinations when the order doesn't matter, as long as we have it this way or the reverse. So this is a pretty cool method that works. If this number is still too low, it might be if you've added up to 25 or 30 or 35 names here, that you just have to go to the bottom of this table, highlight all, or just drag it down. Go to this bottom right-hand corner, just drag this down a little bit further. So that's one way to do it, sort of a brute force using the rand between with the index. Another way that we could do this, this is my favorite way, use only formulas. So here, once again, we have the 10 names in here currently. We have 45 different pairs. And I've got different steps going all the way over. Go up to the top here, type in a Y, and press Enter or the right arrow button or key, and it'll just kind of describe what this is doing. So how many names do we currently have? We have 10. 45. How many name pairs? We have 45. This is a counter, sort of a dynamic counter that we should have 45 here. You notice how this stops one row above. That's because we have a 0 up there. Now in this step, we are sort of a little bit odd, but going backwards from 10. Now, if we add, we're going to add names in a couple of minutes here, and then it'll go back from the top, from the count of whatever amount of names we have, it will kind of go backwards. This is probably the main concept in my solution, live formula solution here, the binning. This is actually a 0. I just put custom formatting to sort of have a column header, but this is a binning table. So as we saw way back here, these groups get smaller and smaller as we go along. So my idea was, well, just reflect that in the size of these groups. So when we get down to the very end, it's getting smaller and smaller, all these groups. So go into this column, press the F2 key in the keyboard, and you can see how this whole thing works. I'm taking the counter, I'm trying to bin it into this table. And if you go back here, you press F2, you see what it's doing to create these ranges that keep getting bigger until we get to the end. 46 is the number of pairs plus 1. So that's the last value. So then over here, we just sort of do the match. Here we're just doing a formula to get the correct number. And these are just indexes that go back and extract the names from here. This is all dynamic. So watch what happens. And of course, at the end, I have this formula just to make sure the 45 is the same as the 45 here. So, you would walk through this, audit the whole thing, see how it works, and you just press Y on all of those. But of course, we have to go back and add some more names. So we have 10 names, 45 pairs. I'm going to type in Kevin. Now it's 11 and 55, and I'm going to type in Oz. Press Enter. 12 names in here. Press F2. 66 name pairs. All of this flows through, and we have 66 over here. So this works quite well. If you were giving this to someone to use, maybe you'd want to hide these columns and lock it or something like that. But if this is less than the number here, then that means maybe you have 30 or 40. And once again, go down to the bottom of this solution, and here we see a bunch of blanks, but just highlight everything all the way across, and just drag all these formulas down until this number is the same as what we have here. All right, now this is my favorite solution, although the brute force is also really cool because not many formulas, just a couple of manual steps. Now this last solution using a pivot table and some formulas. This one I wouldn't recommend, it's a little bit tricky. I think either the brute force method, dynamic formula solution, or Oz's get and transform solution is the three best. This one, a bit tricky, but I'll show you how it works. You put your names in here, and here we have a simple formula that says equals the value to the left. We create a pivot table, we drop the name and the name repeat both into the row label area. Then we have to change this to be in tabular layout, design, report layout, show in tabular form, repeat all item labels, and we have to go up here, right click, field settings, and make sure we check this, show items with no data. Do that for both of these fields. You get all the combinations. Here we have a series of formulas to create the pairs, and then we have to check a couple of things. We don't want duplicates. We want to make sure that it's not the same name, like this one here, or some of them are the same. Like here, Dorothy and Dorothy. But this is the tricky part. We have to then say, okay, if we've removed names from here, or made the list shorter, or changed the names, whatever, we have to look for these names and make sure they're still in here. And finally over here we have to say, all right, let's go like this, and we want to only show the ones that are, like this is the final filter here. But let's just go over here and make sure that we can add some new names. So it seems to work, but it's a little bit tricky how this whole thing works. We have to make sure that we refresh the pivot as well. And technically it does work, but I would stick with the formulas, sort of the brute force formulas, and remove duplicates, or Oz's get and transform solution.